Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you everything you need to get started in watercolor. We're going to cover brushes, paint, paper, and then I'm going to show you how to get your very first watercolor painting. So let's jump right in. First off, let's talk about paint. So I'm using primarily this Grumbacher paint right here. This all came from a starter kit that I got years ago, and I'm still using most of the colors. The only colors I've had to replace are black and white right here. These are both a different brand, Master's Touch, which is also a great brand. I find that with what I do, I just do a lot of nature paintings, animals, birds, and I use a lot of black, a lot of gray, a lot of white. So that's the first color I go through. This whole set has really just lasted me a really, really long time. It's very inexpensive, easy to find. You can get it just about any hobby store, probably. When it comes to brushes, I use a lot of mixed media brushes, primarily smaller ones, just because I do a lot of detailed work. These aren't necessarily watercolor brushes per se, but they get the job done. They're also inexpensive. They come from packs that are probably $5, $10. They're for oils, acrylics, watercolors. I have seen $300 watercolor brushes, and I mean, that's great. I don't use $300 watercolor brushes. I get more all the time. I have some that I haven't even opened yet, so this is Royal Langnickel, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So yeah, a lot of these brushes I've been using them for years and years. I've used and abused them, left them in water. They're painting and peeling, but they get the job done, and I don't really have any reason to use anything else. I use pencils for a lot of my drawings, not drawings, my paintings. I'll do a little brief sketch before I paint. A lot of times I have just kind of a standard lead pencil. I like to use Derwent for a lot of my pencils. And then I also have just your standard, this is a Pentel mechanical pencil where I do a lot of fine detailed work. I have 2 glasses of water that I use. I have one for light paint, the other for dark paint. And I often mix them because it's just chaos over here. I get really into my painting and I forget my rules and I just go for it. I often have a paper towel as well. So this is really good for if you spill some paint, you apply too much water to the paint, you just kind of dab it up and it'll soak up paint. Or if you're really, really fast, you get a little fleck or drop paint on there, you can just kind of apply some water, wipe it up, it comes up very easily. I have this nice little paint palette here with a little area for your thumb, but I never use that. This is very inexpensive. It's plastic. You can get them on Amazon for like 2 for $10 or something like that. Nothing I use is expensive or fancy. I'm not endorsed by any of these brands. This is just what I use. I've created dozens of paintings with them. I haven't had any trouble so far. And if someone tells you you need a specific brand, they're usually endorsed or they're paid to do so. I'm not, so there it is. As for paper, I use Canson paper primarily. This is Canson extra large watercolor paper. Another great brand is Master's Touch. These are both very inexpensive. It's reliable paper. When it comes to paper, the only thing you really need is paper that's thick enough to absorb the water. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, people talk about cold pressed, hot pressed, whatever. It has to be thick enough to absorb the water. You can't use traditional paper, you can't use mixed media paper. That's all gonna bow up and it's gonna warp under the water. Let's talk about the paint that is in my palette. I have white right here, little alizarin crimson, got some Grumbacher red, which is the paint brand that I use. This is burnt sienna, some phthalo green, I think that's ultramarine blue, and then black. And then I've got some cad yellow right there, and then some yellow ochre. If you get one of these beginner sets of paint, that's really all you need. You might need to replace some, but you don't really need to go out and buy a whole bunch of fancy colors that you're going to use for something just once. We're going to jump into our painting now. We're going to take some ivory black and a touch of phthalo blue, and we're going to create a light gray for our background. Today we're going to create a simple crow painting. It requires minimal colors and minimal brushes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The photograph I'm using today is from Niklaus Van Huis on Unsplash. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Go check out his work. Now that we have our background, let's let it dry. Now that our background is dry, take a little ivory black and let's start by painting the crouched head of our crow. Let's outline our crow by painting the tops of each wing. Now take your time on the feathers. We want the feathers to be nice and sharp at the tip. I'm going to take this flat brush and paint feathers on the underside of each wing. I'll use the same brush for the tail feathers as well. My work process is not organized. If something stands out to me, I try and fix it before I forget, but if you're organized, go for it. Add a line from each feather and make sure the lines intersect. We'll have to do this a few times after adding each layer of black paint. As the black paint dries, it's going to look more like charcoal gray. We'll need to keep adding more layers until we achieve the shade we want. I'm going to take my brush and mash it into the palm of my hand a few times to fray the bristles. This will allow me to leave a textured shadow in the snow beneath our crow. I want the shadows to be lighter, so I'm going to lift some of that black paint with my paper towel. I'm going to take a little Chinese white and create some highlights on the crow feathers. Your highlights will fall in a few places: the crow's neck, the top of the wings, and along the shaft of each feather. I'm going to add one final layer of black. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more watercolor tutorials and art videos, and I'll see you next time.